Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of MineZ. Today, this is our last episode before the big update, and as this video is up, it is probably already out, but I just wanted to say that for this top 10 video, I'm only picking videos that are dungeons that are from the old MineZ, and then we can compare maybe later on when the update comes out and all those new dungeons are released. I also wanted to say that it could be a while before my first dungeon tutorial kind of comes out. This is obviously just because we need to figure out the dungeons, we need to actually know what we're doing, and then have a good run so that I can show you guys exactly what you need to do when you do the dungeons. So, I hope you all enjoy. Coming in at number 10, Meteor Crater. To enter Meteor Crater, the first thing you need to do is find the door, which is just difficult on its own. Believe me, I've been there and died before. This next lava room, if patched, could be a huge problem, spawning pigmen and zombies over you as you try to walk through this lava maze. Another reason this dungeon is so difficult is because of the pigmen plates. These plates spawn pigmen on you and are not easily avoided with all the parkour that has to be done to avoid them. And then you get the 4 babies that spawn from them, which can easily launch you up and kill you with fall damage. The last reason why this dungeon comes in at number 10 is what we like to call the Meteor Crater jump. The first jump is a 2 diagonal with a block next to your head, and the second one, once you make this jump, is one with a block above your head and right in front of you. The last one is the pigmen plate. This one can totally end a run right next to where the loot is. If you step on this plate, a pigman spawns, and it's GG. Run for that exit door. Number 9, Floating Islands. Although the Floating Islands is easy for some, and actually a great gearing place, for me, the Floating Islands has always been difficult, because over all that void, I get nervous and lock up. The bridges and stairs which lead up to the Floating Islands are all cracked and broken, so any misstep can send you falling into the void. Another thing to keep in mind is any zombie hit or pigman hit can be fatal by sending you to a never-ending fall. This island here is probably one of the most difficult other than the main island at the top. A giant spawns here, and there are multiple pigman spawners which await you as you run past. The last reason that Floating Islands comes in number 9 is getting the loot and making it out alive. As easy it is to farm the upper island and to get the dungeon chests, it requires a lot of patience and to be on your toes at all time. These dungeon chests can carry respiration helmets, which can be useful in dungeons like Sunken Library. But getting out with iron armor can be very nerve-wracking with all that gear. There are also 2 zombie spawners down here and several pigman spawners which are close to the tree, which without paying attention, a pigman could come out of nowhere and the babies could send you flying. Number 8, Ghost Fleet. Ghost Fleet has always been one of my favorite dungeons, because of the way it looks and because of how fun it is. But one misstep on this treacherous parkour from boat to boat can turn you into a crisp. Even after you successfully complete all the parkour, you still need to cross the disappearing bridge onto Horan's Revenge, which will then have more tasks which await you. First thing is the maze, which without a map is nearly impossible. It starts off with a mere teleportation to the start, but then it starts to give you 6 hearts of damage, or wither 2 when you start to get to the very end, which can be fatal very quickly. The last 2 challenges, without including the boss room or the wave room, are very simple if you know how, but can be very confusing and dangerous if you step on any of the plates. And this last room where you run through activates pigmen and zombies by tripping over the tripwires, and stepping on any of the plates could teleport you to the beginning, which could be very fatal without switching servers. Number 7, Soured Crypt. Another one of my favorite dungeons, and the first hard dungeon which I completed, is Soured Crypt can be very confusing for anyone who does not know what they're doing or doesn't come in the right gear. Arguably one of the hardest rooms in the dungeon, this pigman parkour room requires a good deal of skill in parkour, and it requires that you don't take your time. Pigmen start to spawn here, and when they start to explode, they can knock you off of the parkour and back into the pit with all the other pigmen. And if there's any room that screws people up the most, it's the iron door room. Trying to explain this to your teammates can be very confusing and requires a lot of teamwork and a minimum of 4 players. Each door has its own pressure plate, which then activates a certain door. Without this, you could get stuck here and face pigman spawners which activate in the wall after a certain amount of time. The last 2 rooms are the maze with the timed parkour and the run to the end as fast as you can room. The person who goes in the maze must then work their way back out the dungeon the way you came, which is oftentimes is suicide. That player then opens the door and you must run as fast as you can to the other side while the doors oscillate open and closed. If you miss the door, you get stuck in this room and you get faced with potions and pigmen. Coming in at number 6, Sunken Library. The reason why Sunken Library is not a little bit higher up is because with the help of a good guide, this dungeon becomes very easy and navigating through the maze becomes a cinch. If you don't, however, this dungeon can become very difficult, confusing, and frustrating. This room here before the patch was very difficult because you had to shoot all the buttons within a certain time to be able to open the door going to the next point. There are some safe plates, but at times the non-safe plates can spawn pigmen which fall from the ceiling, killing anybody waiting below for the zombies. Although splitting up can be hard emotionally, it must be done to complete this dungeon. It always helps to have 2 people who know what they're doing, 1 for each side, and the hard part doesn't get any easier. The first major challenge on the hard side is to run past the pigman spawner into the maze full of zombie spawners, trying to look for 3 plates to put items on. These zombie spawners also have a high chance of spawning pigmen, which can be super hard to deal with when in such an enclosed area. Next, you must climb up these stairs without stepping on this pressure plate. If you do, multiple pigmen will spawn in. By stepping on that wooden pressure plate, 3 pigmen will spawn from the ceiling. The second last challenge in this dungeon is to run through this corridor while avoiding as many plates as possible, for some of them will spawn pigmen, damage pots, and slowness pots. Finally, getting the loot can be quite difficult at times because of 6 zombie spawners which hide in the loot room. You must first clear the loot room of the zombies, then run in to grab your prize. Number 5, Wizard Tower. Doing this dungeon with a grapple is hard enough on its own, but if you decide to do it without a grapple, or you don't have one for that matter, this dungeon can be much more difficult. You need to bring all your gear that you've brought for the wave room with you up that treacherous parkour, and then try and make it into the wizard tower itself. Getting past those pigmen can be very tricky at times because their explosions can often send you flying off the particle parkour. Then once that obstacle is done, you face a wave of zombies over and over up till the maximum level of 100. This wave room takes out pretty much any team no matter what your number unless you cheat it and use cakes and cobwebs. This strategy, even with all the cakes and cobwebs, does not work 100% of the time, which is why this dungeon makes it number 5. Continuing with the waves, your team starts to get smaller and smaller due to pigmen which explode and almost insta-kill you. The waves don't stop getting bigger though, as they go up all the way to 100. Your cakes probably are now eaten or get the cobwebs are blown up by grenades, which leave your defenses very vulnerable to the higher waves. And coming in number 4, the Mantle. Now the reason why I put the Mantle so high up on the list is yes, it can be cheated with cobwebs, but ideally, in this dungeon, it's not supposed to be done with cobwebs, so this is why I rate this dungeon so highly. This first room here is very, 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 very difficult without using cobwebs, and is practically nearly impossible with the sheer volume of zombies and pigmen that spawn. Even if you do make it past this room, there are still 3 more floors which you must pass in order to make it to the final boss room and then make it out of the dungeon. Even bringing a gear of full iron, splash potions, and diamond swords, this dungeon with its pigmen can one-shot you no matter what you have or how good your skill is. As you can see, the sheer number of pigmen that come out of those dispensers is enough to kill anybody. Although this run was done solo for fun, it was nonetheless very difficult and would still be almost impossible with a large group of people. Alright, here we are at our top 3. Next up, Bysford Labs. A project led by Garden Gnome and his team way back in the days of MineZ. Bysford Labs has always been one of the toughest dungeons to beat. It takes a big crew and good knowledge to be able to successfully beat this dungeon. This room in particular is one of the most challenging at the beginning, especially if you don't know where the plates are. Upon locating the plates, you must have all 5 people standing on the plates at the same time. But make haste, as long as you're in this room, many zombie and pigment spawners will make the floors crawling with entities. One of the most dangerous rooms is the Undead Containment and Animal Experimentation Room. These 2 rooms are required to pass into the boss room, aka the Wave Room, and are very difficult to make it out alive. These 2 rooms spawn pigmen, baby pigmen, and have multiple zombie spawners that will try and prevent you from moving on. Even if only 1 person dies during these 2 rooms, the whole run can be destroyed, and the other team members will not be able to make it out alive. Finally, the boss room. This room is so small, and with the pigmen, it can be very dangerous for any player, no matter how big your group. The size of the explosion can kill multiple people at one time, so grenades are always helpful here. Communication is always key, but as in every dungeon, luck can be your best friend sometimes, and this boss room is no exception. Alright everybody, get excited, here we are, number 2, Frostbane Catacombs. If you've been organizing with your group on top of the church, you're already at a disadvantage, for zombies and pigmen have started spawning beneath you. As you run to the left side, there are multiple holes within the soul sand that are trying to prevent you from getting in. This room here, when done properly, is actually very difficult. You must go to the right side and push a button and do a piston appearing block parkour. This piston parkour here can be very troublesome for anybody who deals with bad ping or cannot do parkour very well. In order to increase your chances, cobwebs placed at the bottom to kill the lava and feather falling boots also help, but it still makes it very difficult. As the pistons appear in front of you and disappear in front of you so quickly, you have to remember your timing and do it as quickly as you can. Not only do you have to do just one side, but there is a second piston parkour that appears before you that is even more difficult, and if you mess up, you have to start all the way from the beginning. On the right side, there is a giant, but other than that, the right side is not too difficult. This boss room, however, makes up for how easy the right side is, and adds a whole new level of difficulty to dungeons. Since you made it all the way to the boss room, before entering, you must first make a sacrifice to enter the room. Then, with whatever pots you have left, damage pots will rain from the ceiling, and you'll have to stay alive by healing one another and shooting the minecarts in the eyes to shoot the minecart in the heart. And if you thought things couldn't get any harder, if you don't kill the zombies and pigmen fast enough, they will start to pile up at the bottom. And killing one pigman could make a snowball effect, knocking you off your platform into that giant swarm. Once you beat this boss room, things aren't over yet. You still have to go get the loot. Once that door opens, you must clear the area of all the pigmen and or zombies and run for the exit, hoping to get what loot this dungeon has to offer. Many people have died just simply falling down and getting attacked by a pigman around the corner, or having zombies follow them into the loot room. And this is why this dungeon comes in at number 2. So here we are at the end of my top 10 hardest dungeons list. If you have not guessed already which dungeon it is, here you go, Animos Sanctum. Seconds after you enter into this dungeon, you are faced with 3 block jumps over the void, and the room with 5 plates, which you need to step on in order to move on, parkouring over lava, and if you fall, there's no way back out. Known as the Spy Room, this room can be very difficult for those without a grapple because of the 3 block up jumps all the way through up the parkour. This room can be fatal without feather falling 4s due to the distance and height above the ground. Upon choosing the left side when faced with the decision to go left or right, you get to face the room with the plates again over lava. With enough practice, all those rooms can be done fairly easily, but it's when you get to the boss and wave room that things get really serious. You must face 6 waves in order to proceed to the next room, and each wave gets increasingly more difficult. These rooms have a very high chance of spawning pigmen, so pigmen in a square box never go well. You also get the luxury of facing a giant, which when hit can stomp, depleting your life greatly and killing any team members with low health. Grenades are key to this room so that you can kill the pigmen which are right close to you, especially the little ones, which can do great area damage to anyone who is around them while they explode. Giants can also double stomp, which can kill people at full health, which is never a good thing in a wave room. The final room is the boss room, where you need to hit the minecarts in the Eyes of the Wither, all 6 of them, 9 times, similar to Bane, in order to get your loot. The reason this dungeon is so difficult is because if you've made it this far, you can consider yourself lucky. Damage pots rain from the sides, and zombies will fall from the ceiling every 20 seconds, with a chance of a pigman falling right on top of you, sending you into the void. At any point, no matter how far you are along, 1 zombie could end the day, and 1 pigman could end it for your entire team. Once you've completed the entire 9 waves, making it out can also be difficult, and you can maybe miss the 3 block jump on your way out. Alright everybody, so that is it. That's my top 10. Yes, I think Animos is the hardest dungeon in MineZ, because Bane and Animos are the 2 which I have not completed, so obviously I'm going to put them in the front. I hope you enjoyed this episode of MineZ. It was something a little different. I'm hoping to do some more top 10 videos, so if you have any suggestions, just leave them in the comments below, and I will look into that. But I hope you are all enjoying the update right now. I will try my best to get on some dungeons and get those recorded as fast as possible and get some tutorials for you guys. But until then, I will see you all next time.